Hello, I'm Brian from the channel Brian. Hope you're okay. And it's time for me to talk about Zola. You know, Zola. Everybody loves and has heard of Zola. This video is getting no views. I could talk about the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard or some bullshit, but I want to talk about Zola because it's way more interesting. This movie is already fairly stylish and entertaining, but its real uniqueness comes once you understand its origins. For those unaware, Zola is based on a lengthy Twitter thread detailing the real experience of its author getting a little more than she bargained for, taking a spur-of-the-moment road trip to Florida. Many lines of dialogue are ripped verbatim from the thread. To get the best experience, I recommend going into Zola aware of this, but without knowing the intricate details. The twists and turns this film has to offer definitely hit harder when you don't know they are coming. Which, yeah, I guess is true about every film, but it's especially important for getting the most out of Zola. The impersonal smugness of Twitter easily breeds disbelief, but this medium transfer allows for a more personal, developed window into realizing this truly bizarre sequence of events actually happened to our protagonist. There are definitely moments where you can tell Zola herself was not actually present and would not know how these things happened, but for the most part this is not an over-embellished account of the thread. Unlike so many other films based on true stories, the truth behind it makes the story genuinely unpredictable. You don't know who's gonna die, you don't know what the character's true motivations are, you don't know if there will be proper payoffs to what's been set up. There might be some incredible coincidences that transpire in Zola's story, but they're not in line with what a Hollywood screenwriter would think of, even for an I'm not like other guys studio like A24. If you're interested in medium-specific filters of reality and how they color our reaction to the stories they tell, Zola is an unmissable film for you. And that's all well and exciting, but it's not like the film is beyond reproach because of this. There are one or two presentational gimmicks that don't contribute much besides, haha, this story originated on a phone, do you get it? Director Jenixa Bravo does a great job in making this story palatable and human, but those moments felt uncharacteristically cheesy. And as much as the lifelike unfolding of this narrative helps Zola, it forces some narrative sacrifices as well, notably the lack of structure or defined pacing because, guess what? Real life is more a constant stream of events until whatever situation you've encountered has resolved itself than it is a film. The climax of Zola is the only part of the film that appears to be wildly different from how it reportedly happened to make it more dramatically viable. Still, there are odd interjections and sequences that have nothing to do with preserving the true story that are kind of poorly placed in my opinion. This movie jams down the fucking parking brake to let Riley Keough tell her character's side of the story, and it's presented like something that would have been saved for the end, but then there's still like a half hour left. When Zola actually ends, it does so in an incredibly odd place. Most people have already cited this as an issue with the film, and what's strange is the film does not end where the Twitter thread does, and I can't find anything about where it ends that says to me it had to end there to work as a film. Stuff like that, or Riley Keough's character, who is amusing but incredibly one-note, remind us of just how temperamental the barriers are between dramatization and real life. It's interesting to see the two lenses play off each other, but there's an inevitable give and take. Colman Domingo's performance is just as entertaining, but his role in the story lends itself better to a film. As Zola might find itself sometimes in a dialectic tension between the two halves of its identity, the true story and the film, he's an example of getting the best of both worlds. Zola herself is a great anchor of relative normalcy compared to these larger-than-life personalities that surround her. She's robust and relatable, but not showily written. While the filmmaking itself is nowhere near the most interesting part of Zola's storytelling, there is definitely much to appreciate and discuss here. The film has some great shot composition, there are incredibly framed long takes against a couple static but obviously planned out backgrounds. There was nothing that jumped out at me as particularly awful, but especially in combination with the film's amorphously thriller genre and tone, I picked up on the vibe of a much cleaner looking Safdie Brothers film, which to me kind of works to the film's disadvantage. You know, in Good Time and Heaven Knows What, where everybody's really sweaty and gross, I think that's what's missing. Perhaps the presentation here is a bit too Hollywood. I genuinely believe the biggest problem with Zola is that everything looks too clean, and would be a much better film if the characters were a little more disgusting looking. Especially for a film so interlinked with its basis in reality that really would have brought everything home. Zola's not as flashy or interesting as something like Spring Breakers that has kind of a similar subject matter, to have a different but equivalently effective presentation. This year hasn't been great so far, and we're 7 months in. I don't know if Zola's gonna be one of my favorite movies of the year, but it'll certainly be one of the most intriguing and fun to discuss. Critics are eating it up, audiences are eating it up, and I'm wholly convinced it's because of its origins than anything actually in the film. And nobody's incorrect for feeling that way about it, but it makes for a movie that's more interesting than the sum of its parts. I'd give Zola a 6 out of 10. And to some people that's a bad score, and listen, it's not, first off. This movie's not perfect, but I want to stress its imperfections are also worth experiencing on novelty alone. So while it gets that score, I highly recommend you see for yourself the elements that got us there. Okay, so did you like this movie more than me? Less than me? Well, if you care to, please tell me. I mean it. And anyways, if you like not only words, but the way I arrange and then say them, please consider giving this video a like, helps me with the algorithm, and subscribing to me, Brian from the channel Brian. Thank you, and goodbye.